I shut my door here.
Yeah, you shut your door. Hi, everybody. It's Chris West from House Calls Vermont. Welcome to another episode. This episode 8 of our live YouTube uh, show. We, of course, have a bunch of stuff on our YouTube channel, old videos from videos we made when we were doing the show live on the air. And those are all available. We also have some interesting instructional videos which were visual answers to questions we got from viewers and listeners. So, welcome. Here's Jim Bradley. He's just sitting down after having closed the door. Um,
Hey, hello, everybody.
we wanted just to remind everybody that we're going to be the earlier show card that was up before was indicating that I was going to be interviewing Katrine Klingenberg. That is true. I will be interviewing Katrine, but I won't be interviewing her today for this show. We'll be doing that, and it'll be available on the show on July 13th, which is a Tuesday, 2 weeks from now. I'm going on vacation next week, so there will be no show next week, no live show, but we will in fact be putting up some interesting video. So if you're up and interested, we'd love to have you stop by, like, and subscribe. We're almost at hundreds of subscribers. We went from 93 up to 99 in the past couple of days. So thank you very much to
Great.
everyone who's been watching. Our initial first goal is 1,000. Once we get 1,000 subscribers, we can start monetizing our site. Not like we're trying to make a pile of money off of this, but we're complete volunteers on this, so it'd be nice to be able to at least pay ourselves for the equipment we're buying, and maybe at some point, who knows, bigger and greener fields. So. Welcome. Tonight we're going to be talking about membranes. Later on in the show, we'll be having a what we're calling an audit eavesdrop. Jim and I do energy audits, and I've been taking video at the last couple of energy audits. I've got about a quarter of the last audit we did, which is an initial look at the outside of the building. It's a good thing to watch if you're interested in what we're looking for as energy assessment people. What kind of things an exterior of a building can tell to people with the right kind of knowledge about what's going on inside the house and durability issues. And we'll be showing that. We also have a spot where we speak shortly with Steve Spats from Efficieny Vermont, and we're a repeat of an interview with Mark Coviello, who is the regional field support tech for SIGA tapes and membranes.
Yes.
So that'll be we'll be airing that later on in the show. All of this is available on our YouTube channel, and we'd love for you to check it out. We also have a opportunity to call us if you are interested in asking us a question. You can call us at 802 200 2550, and the lines are open. And you can also send us an email at the email right here on the bottom of the screen, housecallsvt@gmail.com. So, Jim, what are we talking about tonight?
Membranes, and some people just call it, let's talk about a building as an assembly first, as a whole system. And that whole system is made up of several assemblies, whether it's a roof assembly or a wall assembly, a basement assembly, and how do you best address that and protect it? What's so important when you consider what's going on inside of a building is vapor drive. So many people would say, I got to just have my house breathe. What's more important is that it has the ability to dry, because no matter what type of assembly you build, especially in our climate, climate zone 6, if it doesn't have the ability to dry, you're going to have a building failure of some sort, whether it's deterioration, whether it's mold, a combination thereof. Then in a sick building situation, not the sick building situation where you have new construction and the VOCs are at a really high level, but actually where your building starts to decay and it's holding in VOCs and it's holding in like carbon dioxide levels at a higher level, which is going to affect the occupants from a cognitive level. All these things come into play. So what we need to be able to do is manage how air and moisture flow and enter or are prevented from entering or exiting a building. And when we look at that, we look at how we address that as an assembly from inside to outside or outside in. And what we're trying to do is keep the outside out and we're trying to keep the inside in. But if the inside is a higher vapor content, we want that to be able to diffuse as well and to get out of the building and not condense against a really cold sheeting surface. Like let's say it's 0 degrees outside and we have 70-degree indoor air temperature that's convecting through the wall assembly, hitting that cold sheathing, and then taking that moisture and releasing it on the sheathing and then refreezing. But once that gets moist, it then starts to degrade most insulation types inside the wall, and then they can't loft or protect, loft air, warm air molecules as well. Then the whole assembly is not as effective from a insulation value, and that cycle actually gets exacerbated over time. And it doesn't heal just when it dries back out in most situations. What it's going to do is it's going to degrade, and then it's going to start to deteriorate the wall structure itself. And that becomes very expensive, very unhealthy, and not a good thing at all. And that's why when we tell people, if you're building a house or you're making renovations to a structure, make sure you get the assembly right. You have to understand vapor drive. That's hugely important. And people will say, I live in this old 1800s farmhouse. I'll burn 12 cords of wood a year, 14 cords of wood a year, and it's leaky and no one gets sick because the air is just moving right on through. That's not a good metric. Or we'll have other builders who will say, when it comes to different membranes, I'm going to go back to using the old tar paper, because your Tyvek and your Typar that have been used, they're not as big of fans of that, and they may see failures when they deconstruct a building, and they'll say, we're just going to go back to the tar paper and that'll be the solution. But things have changed, since tar paper was initially used. Your building materials have changed significantly. No longer do you have old growth lumber being used in solid pieces for your framing and your sheathing and your cladding and everything else. What you have is a lot of engineered components that are mixed with resins and glues and things like that, which impede vapor diffusion, and they promote, in many cases, condensation. And when you have that type of situation and you're not promoting drying, you're going to have some type of failure. And Chris, we've seen this quite often. I mean, you can't even count how many times, but I've never seen it turn out well if people don't address it appropriately.
Yeah, Jim, you're absolutely right. There's no question that 3 phone calls today I got from different builders asking me about assemblies that they were thinking about using, or they were going to build a wall that they haven't built before, and they wanted my opinion. And so this is an active question for builders here. We are constantly talking with people about making sure that their assemblies can breathe while maintaining an airtight enclosure. And by breathing, we don't mean air. We make sure that it has drying potential, that we're dealing with perms. And when you're looking at materials, you look at the permeance or the perm rating of that material. That's how much water in a vapor form can get through the material with a certain vapor pressure difference between them. And it gets very technical, and we won't get into that very deeply. But in general, anything that is vapor closed is going to be less than 1 perm. Officially, something that is 0.01 to 1 perms is vapor. It allows for vapor to come through it. It's not a piece of plastic that doesn't let anything go through it. It's a vapor retarder, though. And when you get to 1 to 10 perms, then it's all still a vapor retarder, but it's more vapor open. And once you get above 10 perms, that's when we're talking about vapor open. And when we talk about and when we're talking about airtight enclosures, we're talking today specifically, and we'll get into that, about membranes. But membranes are not the only way to make to do the airtightness on an enclosure. We have zip walls. People are using zip walls and they're taping those up. Zip walls are basically oriented strand board, also known as OSB, and OSB has at best a perm rating of 1. While what we really want for a vapor open assembly is something higher than 1, and even better, something higher than 10. And when we start talking about those numbers, then we're really talking about membranes. Even the lowest of the membranes, the Typar, has a perm rating of 13.
And what people don't usually get is the fact of how much moisture actually does move through an assembly. So often you'll go into a house, we'll go into a house, Chris, and we'll do a home performance assessment, and you get the infrared camera out, and that's a wonderful tool to be able to see what's going on behind the scenes. Like, go behind the curtain and you find the wizard. And you see what's going on, and you see these pathways, and people are flabbergasted because they say, well, listen, that whole thing is sheetrock, it's taped, there's no cracks, there's no openings. How could it possibly be doing that? And then you start looking at all the penetrations that are there, from vent hoods to light fixtures to the actual light switches, the electrical plugs, where the sheetrock comes down on near the floor, and behind the baseboard, it's up off the floor by a half inch or so. Air is moving through there. When that transport mechanism of air is in place, here's what Joe Seabrook has done an analysis before. When you take a complete 4x8 sheet of sheetrock, it does have some permeability to it. So much so that if during the regular heating season, you'll see moisture of 1/3 of a quart of moisture will transfer across that 32 square foot piece of sheetrock freely, unless it has some kind of vapor retarding paint on it. And so it'll go through the wall assembly. Magnify that though by placing just a 1 inch by 1 inch hole in that sheetrock, which could be any one of those openings I was just describing, and you'll have 30 quarts of water being transported from the inside to the out, not completely to the outside, but into that wall system or that roof system or that vaulted ceiling. And it's usually carrying a lot of moisture with it. And as soon as that warmer air that can carry more moisture hits a colder surface, it contracts the ability to be able to carry air and release it, or moisture, and releases that moisture against that building surface. And that's when that bad cycle sets up. So just looking at a wall assembly, just looking at a roof assembly and seeing that it's all sheetrocked or paneled or whatever, how many more penetrations are actually open that behind the scenes that need some type of correctly installed membrane put in place. For years, Chris, I mean, people were promoting visqueen right behind the sheetrock, but how many walls have we opened up to find that that was a bad measure?
Yeah, and that's again an important point, Jim. I wanted to just stress is that
Sure.
our experience is not just textbook experience. We're going in the field. We're looking at how these assemblies are put together. We're seeing failures. We're seeing non-failures. We're seeing things that
Sure.
went right. Like that later on in the show, we'll have the eavesdropping on our audit. And when we walked up to that house, it's right on the lake. It's a long ranch, lots of attic space, and 3 small gable end vents. I was pretty sure that was not going to be in good shape, but I let the facts tell me what is happening. And when we got up into the attic, as you'll see if you watch the video, there was no mold growing on the inside of the sheathing or on the rafters in any part of the attic. So that gable end system works pretty well. And this particular one is the one where the gable ends are all the way at the peak. So it's actually pretty high up. When you have a gable end that's a little lower, it doesn't vent quite as well. But so we let the evidence show us. So when we start seeing failures in wall assemblies due to putting up poly on the inside back in the day and having a relatively tight outside sheathing, I think immediately of when we took your kitchen apart, and we found all that black mold on the back of the sheathing, and we were not surprised because it was a 2x6 with fiberglass on the inside and then a sheet of plastic. There's really not much moisture can do in that situation, and on the outside a very well thought out but vapor closed assembly.
But at the same time, what they had was, just like so many people, no matter if you're using the normal visqueen or you're using one of the high performance membranes, some of the problems came into play because people don't detail them right. They don't install them right. You can have the greatest design, but if it's not detailed appropriately, like sealing it around all these penetrations, making sure there's not a transport pathway for the warm, moist air to exit the building into that wall assembly, unless you do that, you're not going to get the performance you're looking for. And that was the big problem with visqueen, or that plastic sheeting, is because they would overlap the seams, staple the snot out of it on everywhere, and they wouldn't tape around the actual joints to the ceiling, or on the framing itself or the floors. So really, it had so many different bypasses, it could not effectively prevent what was trying to get in. So, Chris, what are some of the things for our listening audience that would there's different elements that membranes are trying to control or prevent from coming in?
Right. So a membrane has 3 main purposes. The first purpose, depending on where it is, right? Because we have certainly we're not going to need an exterior membrane to be able to shed water, bulk water. But that's one of the things that we ask membranes to do. So we're talking about a membrane on the outside of an assembly. Then we want it to be able to shed bulk water, but allow vapor, which is not bulk water, but water in a gaseous form, to move through it when conditions are right. We want it, so that's two of the three things we wanted to do. One, we wanted to shed bulk water. Two, we wanted to allow vapor through it when the vapor drive, or we have a higher concentration on one side, a lower concentration on the other, that there's a drying potential, that that higher concentration of moisture will be able to move through the membrane and go to the lower area of relative humidity or moisture in the air. And the last thing we wanted to do is we want to use it for air tightness. Right? We want to make sure that we're able to reduce the uncontrolled ventilation of our house. Infiltration is also known as uncontrolled ventilation. Yes, it's bringing in fresh air, but if it's minus 20 outside, the fresh air that's coming in is minus 20 degrees. And so there are better ways to bring in fresh air to ensure that we're having hygienic indoor air quality. And that is not through the mouse dropping infested insulation in your walls. The nasty bits, as we say. So those are the three things we wanted to do. And in order for us to be able to realistically ask this material to do this, then we have to do what is called make it contiguous. We need to make sure that there are no breaks in its attachment to itself, to other bits of itself, to the building members itself. There are certain building materials that are so airtight that we can use them as air sealing. I was saying before, OSB, plywood, concrete. One of the reasons, so there's a standard metric you all have probably heard when we're talking about air tightness. We usually talk about air tightness in the form of air changes per hour at 50 pascals, right? We depressurize the house or pressurize the house to 50 pascals, which is an approximation of a 22.5 mile per hour wind blowing against the house. When we're doing that, we're looking at a metric that doesn't scale very well. One of the things we've learned in building science is that one air change per hour on a 600 square foot one bedroom cottage is different than one air change per hour on a 15-story building. So what they've done is they've moved away from the metric of one air change per hour, and they've gone to the number of cubic feet per minute that move through 1 square foot of the envelope of the building. And that's just a much better metric. So what a lot of architects were saying is, the slab of a building is always so airtight that we shouldn't even count it when we're counting the exterior envelope of the building. Well, it is true that concrete does not let air go through it, but what do we do with concrete to make sure that we can get surfaces through it? We make holes in it. There are gaps, there are seams, there are cracks. There are places where the concrete meets other wood parts. All of that has to be well detailed. Are you going to get a lot of air leakage through a basement wall that's poured? No, but as Jim and I have both seen, those metal ties that they use for connecting the two sides of the form that you're pouring your basement wall with, those rust out after 10 or 15 years and become holes for water and if in the wrong place, air. So we don't rely on our idea that something is airtight. We want to make sure that it's airtight. So looking at using a membrane is one way to do that, is to wrap the whole house in a membrane. And sometimes, connecting that to some of these other materials can be tricky. That's why the industry has come up with a whole bunch of very interesting tapes and other types of adhesives.
And these tapes are not I was thinking about this before we did the show, of the old Scotch tape that was used in photo albums, where you put them on in the early 60s or 50s, and within a few years, they've turned yellow and start to delaminate and everything else. These tapes are really acrylic bonding agents in a roll, and they are usually vapor open at the same time to promote that vapor transmission or diffusion. And when they go on, a lot of them are pressure affixed, so that you actually have to press on them or create friction. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, go for it. The world is full of reality, and this is reality TV.
So with that, it was a police officers association want me to give to their their policeman's ball. It looks like, but with that uh, with the tapes that you use, when you put the pressure upon will cause friction, it actually bonds really tightly to the surface underneath, whether that's the actual membrane itself or it's going to be concrete or another wood surface like OSB. It really bonds aggressively to the point where if you come back a little while later and try to pull this tape
Recording in
off,
progress.
it actually will
Keep going.
it actually will end up pulling some of the substrate or the fibers off with it because it's that aggressive. It's not something you want to put on your skin and leave there because it'll pull the hair and everything else with it.
I've
It's
heard
really
a lot of people who have used it in the field say, "I love the product for what it does. I can't stand handling it." That's why, and you'll hear when you if you stay and watch the interview with Mark Coviello from SIGA that they have for different sizes, right, widths of it, but they also have different backing. So there are split backings where you can peel
Yes.
off one side, attach that, and still have the backing on the other side to make it easier to use because this stuff is aggressive.
And I've used some of the Vicor products around windows, like vinyl windows, but they've come to find out later that these Vicor products, because of the petroleum in there, they will actually degrade some of these vinyls. So your window could be decomposing behind the scenes because of the sealant that you're putting on there. So it's counterproductive of what you're trying to achieve. But the nice thing about these other acrylic bonding agents or tapes that are out there now, these high performance ones, they're made to be compatible with most building products, and they're not going to create that type of situation. And as Chris said, they're making this towards much more user friendly. How many times have I tried to use other products where the tape folds over onto itself and you can't pull it apart, and it's just really, really frustrating. But with the split back tapes, you can get into tight areas. It makes things a lot easier, less frustrating, and you get that really high performance seal that you're looking for to make sure the whole assembly is going to work well. And that allows you to bond the building materials to the actual membranes, as Chris said, to get a contiguous assembly. Many people, especially if you're building to the passive house standard or the high performance tier, you'll bring your concrete vapor barrier like a Stego wrap or something like that up underneath the slab, up into the foundation walls, and then tie that in with the building, the actual WRB or weather resistant barrier on the wall. You'll tie that and overlap it and then tape that together. So you get this continually sealed product, contiguously sealed, and it's going to perform that much better for you.
Right. And so the keys there are we were looking at the permeance, the perm rating of these materials.
Yes.
Almost all these materials, certainly all the membranes and often all the other materials like OSB, plywood, and even insulation materials on the material cut sheet will have a permeance rating, and that permeance rating is either per thickness or it is for the entire piece. You got to watch out, is it perm per inch? And if that is right, and you have an inch of it, then it's that perm, or even an inch and a half, it's 1.5 times that perm, etc. So you want to, when you're looking at, especially when we're dealing with rigid insulation, we want to be very careful about how we're building our walls. A lot of the insulations that are available are very vapor closed.
Yes.
XPS,
Foil-faced.
EPS.
Yeah, foil faced.
Foil faced. So most of these things don't let a lot of moisture diffuse through them. Anecdotally, and from what I've heard, XPS is slightly slower on accepting or taking water in. It also takes longer for water to get back out of it if it does get wet. And Jim and I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Rob Comboy of Glavel. And one of the reasons that we're so excited about Glavel is because one of the places on a building where builders are still saying, I've got to use plastics, I've got to use an EPS or an XPS or polyiso, is in that below grade condition, and Glavel kind of alleviates the need of doing that. So if you haven't seen the interview on Glavel, please go check out our YouTube channel. The interview is there independent and outside of the actual episode, but so you can just grab it and look, but you can also watch the whole episode where we're talking about subground insulation and things of that sort.
And so with some of these tapes, is where I was going also earlier, was the fact that they test these tapes to have a longevity, life cycle that's really extensive. So it's not going to delaminate in a short amount of time, like some of the Scotch tapes used to. So it's not just a tape. Like I said, it's a bonding agent. And if you install it correctly and you make sure you're fastidious with the details, you're going to get a very long lasting and durable assembly. Because if we're building to the 100-year mark and beyond, and we want this building to continue to perform, if it remains exactly the way that it was originally constructed and no one breaches that membrane, then we should have a very high level of expectation that we're going to get that type of performance out of the building, and it's going to continue to last and last and last. And that's what we're looking to achieve. And even if we're going to be using a lot more engineered lumber products, which are highly susceptible to moisture, whether it's OSB or some of the engineered
all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to do something to control and to properly address the vapor component and the vapor drive within the assembly. And that's how we're going to achieve that. And even with that, you got to be careful too with these membranes. They have a limited UV exposure rating.
Oh, that's something that many people, I mean, we've seen it. Everybody's seen it driving down the road. Somebody's got their, Lowe's exterior membrane. They've got it pretty well detailed, but they leave it up there for 6 months. It's worthless at that point.
6 years. 6 years. You can't even tell us the Lowe's blue anymore because it's faded so badly.
Isn't Lowe's like a lavender color, or those like violet?
I often joke that if they leave it up there too much longer, exposed, they may have to get a historic preservation variance just to be able to plat over. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, well, that gets into much deeper discussions about regulations. So we're coming up to the half hour here. So we're going to start switching over to some of our first the discussion, the look at an audit. So the eavesdropping on an audit. But before that, I just wanted to say once again, if you have any questions that we're not answering, please feel free to go ahead and join us every Tuesday from 7 to 8:30. You can also send us an email to housecallsvt@gmail.com. And the phone lines are open. I know that it's hard for people to find us with our online presence, but the phone number is 802-200-2550, and we'll go take a look at this audit, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
Great. Science consultant for Passive House. So we like to make it as the most efficient assembly as possible, but at the same time, we want to make sure health and safety is addressed first. Mm-hmm. Because if you tighten up a house and all of a sudden you change the indoor air quality, you're not helping the occupants. And then if you
26th of June. Raised ranch. Just a ranch in Isle La Motte. Lakeside.
Or incorporating a complete system, because if you're doing something and you're changing the scales of how the house operates, but you're not addressing some of those other items, you can end up creating a catastrophic failure.
So some of the things we're looking for here are, is there a soffit? Does that soffit go to an attic? So we're looking under here, and we don't see a soffit, which makes us think that if there is an attic, there could be issues with venting. And I'm looking inside, and I'm seeing some flats, which means that this should have some venting somewhere, and I haven't seen it yet. The other thing we'd be looking at here is the condition of the roof. This is a metal roof, a screw-down metal roof, and that is perfectly okay. Sometimes the gaskets on the screws get damaged through UV and just time, and that can allow some water through. So we're not huge fans of that particular one. The other thing I'm noticing here is the ground is way too high. You see, here is where I get to see a bit of separation, and we really want that to be a minimum of 8 inches. And right now, I'm not even seeing. I'm seeing places where it's under the ground, so that's a issue. It's got this siding. The question is it siding on top of siding? What do they do there? We'll have to see that. We're looking at the condition of the windows, right? We're looking to see if there are any. We got a lot of mold here, not mold, lichen or moss, and that's because there's this tree that's stopping it from getting rid of that. And again, here we have the bottom. Okay, there we go. We have a gable end vent. So this side has a gable end vent. Once again, the ground is too close to the bottom there. This is a slab on grade, and so there's no basement here. Decks are often an issue. I don't know how well this is flashed, but we do have some pretty good overhangs here. Right, looks like about a 2.5 foot overhang, which will reduce splashback, which is why we're worried about the height of the ground to that. But you can see it's raining right now, so we're not wet here. Still no soffits. Another one of these teeny gable end vents. Right. Here's an oil tank, double oil tank. Wow. So each of these oil tanks holds 275 gallons. So this is, you know, 550 gallons or so. And that is interesting. They do have the proper connector, so there is a black pipe there. That's what we'd be looking at. We don't want those to be copper. There's a separate building, which is, as far as I know, is not a part of the audit. Let's see if there's a gable end on this side too. Interesting planters. There's a ridge vent. I'm not sure if there's a ridge vent. There could be a ridge vent, but we do have gable ends. So we'll see if there's access to the attic. And
Well, how do you want to proceed here?
Well, what'd you find out there, Chris?
not much. We got gable end vents on this and that bit.
The siding goes right down to the ground.
Yeah, exactly, all the way around.
Usually, Craig, we want to see 6 to 8 inches above because that right there, it's definitely feasible that water's getting trapped behind that vinyl.
And into the wood part of the structure,
Yes.
right? That's what we're concerned about.
And vinyl is a horrible element when it comes to holding moisture against the building.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So if that's getting up in there, then it's going to trap.
And that's pretty constant around the building, is that they've got this rock almost up to the ground. There's a large deck in the back. We'll take a walk around too. There are no soffit vents. There's a gable end vent on this part, kind of a T structure here. There's also one on that side. Is there access to the attic? Are there holes?
Yes, I do believe there is in the far end of the house.
Good,
where we've got some serious work to do in there.
Okay.
So.
There's a double 275 gallon oil tank in that side building. Okay. So
what are the pipes? Copper? Or?
No, they're black. Okay. They're the right kind of pipes.
And this is one of the areas that I think Bob really wants to concentrate on. Is you'll see when we get down here, the electrical, the heating, the oil heating, all of this is pretty problematic, and we really, I think, are looking for a comprehensive solution.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll be able to give you advice on that for sure. The good thing is, and Jim, why don't we just walk around, is that the overhangs are wide enough that we're not seeing a lot of, yeah, exactly, all along here, way too high on the ground, but an opportunity to pull it down, right? It's not like no option for pulling it down. Yeah, I was looking at that too. We've got a lot of lichen and moss growing, but that's because of this tree. It's just blocking the sun. And then here, similarly,
there's foam, siding.
Okay.
So it feels like they, before they put the vinyl up, left the siding, went with approximately 1 inch of foam over the top, and then the vinyl.
Right.
Which makes a vapor sandwich.
So, yeah.
And that's
not
good or bad?
That's bad. So we got some degradation here, and this particular pan is now sloped in, so that's drawing water in.
I think they may already have ordered replacement window.
Okay, that's going to be interesting to know, because what we have advice on windows, there's some really good windows available now that aren't that expensive. That are pretty much the same cost of the one that your brother's already looking at.
See, my concern is you got greenery growing in the window.
Oh yeah, and
you
you're
might
just
have
you're
rotten sills
5
too,
inches
rotten framing
in.
behind.
Yeah.
Don't doubt it.
So
Yeah.
when they replace the windows, there's going to be a stool and some other stuff that's going to have to be replaced there.
And Craig,
But-
what we tell people is the first day is the worst day because it's the day you find things. And so we don't want to cause anyone any dismay, but we just are going to be very candid about
Candid.
Well, and you need to. You need
Yep.
to be. We're glad to have you here.
Good.
And the purpose of your being here is to
Give you guys a
help
good
us fix it
catalog.
properly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
a concern for me on the roof line a little bit, just the way that that's cut off there. It's not horrible, but it's interesting. Wind-driven rain coming from this way,
Yeah.
getting beyond that metal.
Getting under it.
Yeah.
This is north, and so there's some pretty good weather. I think we didn't get to see it in the winter, but the very first visit.
It's a great
I paid
spot.
here-
I mean, wow.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful spot. Yeah, but there was a lot of ice piled up on that.
Oh, yeah.
exterior window. And
Yeah. Well, when we get up into the attic, we'll be able to give you get our eyes on it and make a recommendation on air sealing. It's most likely gonna be, air sealing if the attic is venting right. That's our main concern. Those small gable vents are not very. Yeah, I was thinking you might wanna. Is that
So-
dirt
It's dirt.
right there? Huh.
That's dirt right underneath this deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually
Concrete.
concrete.
Okay. Yeah.
But these are laying right on top of it.
They have sleepers. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of space under it.
You know what this probably was, Chris?
There you go.
This was probably a patio first, and they left the concrete, and then that's why it's higher out there, because somewhere in here it's going to stop, it's going to drop off,
Yep.
and then you're going to have just regular dirt underneath.
Yeah, and we're seeing more concrete blocks here. I think you may be right, Jim. There's probably a step here down that they.
It's a fair slope, but see this? It goes this way,
Yeah.
both in together.
Yeah, just because of the way it was built.
Well, no,
And that's separating. You
that
can
was
even
a
see the
hot
nails.
tub, and there was probably more.
Ah,
there.
it
This
was.
is actually an enclosure, like a screened-in.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
there was more weight
A
here
pergola.
putting it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the
And
separation
there's the
here.
block.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is what it was.
Yep.
That was a patio.
Yep. With sleepers put on top of it to make it look better. It's been here for a while, obviously, but
I think so.
yeah. This is what I was talking about. There's the double oil tank in there. Black pipe. So this looks good. Very new tanks. It
Is
looks
it?
like to me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
are they?
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah.
Now, what
Yeah.
probably happened was the old ones were
Rusted out or
defunct,
something.
and
Yeah.
the state's new policy is that you have to get these replaced. Look at that, Chris, though. The mold.
Oh, there is mold. I wonder what's going on behind it too.
Yep. It's definitely some water leakage, I would imagine.
Yeah. There's an unheated
This
space.
is a section of the house that they really want to revamp, and you'll see more about why when
Okay.
we get
Good.
inside. So I think that I'm not remembering everything they want to do here as clearly as I would like to, but I think the idea is to try to move all of the utilities out to this area.
Okay.
And
Okay.
keep them out of the main house.
Well, definitely want to make
Got a
sure the
critter.
structure is sound then. Yeah, there's something living under there.
Yeah,
Really north of that.
there have been a couple of red foxes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I don't know whether they're still there or not. They discovered them shortly after coming up here.
Oh.
They haven't had the property for long.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. But the height to the wood structure is a problem all the way around. And I really don't think that those gable ends are gonna, when we get up there, I think we're gonna find that they're not giving enough.
Airflow.
What did they do to is this a built up roof? You see what I'm seeing? Or is that just a new flashing on the outside to cover up the already 2x6?
I think that's all it is.
Yeah, okay. We'll see when we get in there. Okay, there we're on the outside. Let's go on the inside. It doesn't have a basement, so that'll be... Yes, no, I think they're planters.
They are planters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because there's no basement.
Yep.
Ooh, something's still down there.
Sometimes you're not so happy to have. Now these are very simple geometry. I like that. So we usually start the audit by saying we're very nosy. We're going to look everywhere. So
Good. Please do.
The nose knows, Chris.
it does know. A bit musty for sure.
Definitely
Huh?
musty. How long has this not been lived in, Craig?
I don't really know the answer to that. The people that owned it before Bob and Cheryl were Canadian. They were coming down and spending time here. I don't know. These were their homegrown efforts to fix some things or change some things.
Ah, it's just a.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Okay. Well, I love the geometry.
Oh, good.
So we have a ceiling here that's likely, these tiles have
Possibility of. Well, those are just
Directly-
sound tiles.
well, what if they're just directly applied?
We'll see.
This height here is less than 8.
But that also has tiles.
Yeah, but then
So when we get in here, we can see the difference. That is from the edge here. That is about the same height. From this height right here.
Yep.
See how the two of them connect.
Yep.
So spray foam against a chimney is always a good idea.
Do you mean that?
No, no, it's a
We
it's a
kind of
fire
assumed
hazard
it-
to do that.
I
Yeah.
kind of assumed it wasn't a very good.
No, you're right. It's just a regular fireplace. Okay, with these, oh, we recognize those.
effective vents.
Yeah, maybe with a fan here.
Now, will this be their full-time residence, Craig?
No. Actually, they'll just be here during the summer. Although they're thinking about renting it when it's rentable, and when they're not here.
So we turn on the bath fan and we listen to it. This bath fan. So not a bad move. When you're selling a house, make the bathroom really nice.
Yeah.
That's so you can tell that that's what they did.
They
But that bath fan
renovated
sounds
this
pretty good.
just before the sale, I believe.
Yeah, feels like it.
Yeah.
It just feels like nobody's ever even been in it.
Yeah, and they obviously started working
On
on
the
the
kitchen,
kitchen.
yeah.
What ended up happening here, I think, though, I'm pretty sure they intended this construction for themselves, and then with the closure of the Canadian border and stuff like that, became more and more difficult. And as the property prices escalated, they began to think about selling and did. Now, here's the magic. And
Oh my gosh, this is
Why
a
does it
mixed
so much?
this is a mixed fuel.
Oh my gosh, it's just...
It's a solid fuel, and so this is a really uncommon little baby here. You can actually, unless I have it wrong, it looks mixed fuel, that you could actually burn something else in here, like wood. Yep, exactly. So it's an oil burner on the bottom with a wood box, firebox in it.
Yeah.
Probably about as inefficient as a thing can get.
Oh, great.
But do you feel
Well,
that...
they don't want to keep this stuff. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
believe.
and we'll give them a recommendation for
Do you feel
what
how
to
hot
swap
it
it
is
in.
in here, Chris?
It's really
Yeah.
hot,
Yeah, it's warm.
and that's
in
the
here.
attic access.
And there's your
What I'm
attic
wondering here,
access.
Jim, is this mastic on the floor. I'm worried that maybe
Yes.
it's asbestos.
Those look like 8x8 tiles to me.
It does look like the classic 8x8 tile.
So, Craig, one thing is, it's just one of those markers, indicators, that when a certain size tile was 8x8, it was very popular in the day. It was had black mastic on the back, and more than likely than not, it had asbestos in it, and so it needs to be encapsulated or professionally remediated, or something that needs to happen. Clay Point Associates out of Williston is a great testing agency. It's not hugely
cheap.
expensive, but it's not cheap either.
Right.
They should test this to verify.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Before
was
you
done.
do any more work.
Yeah. Did
Due diligence by the
This
seller.
work was done prior to acquiring
so
the
did
house.
this have a home inspection done?
It did have a home inspection
Did they cite
done.
this?
We'll have to take a look at the report. If you can get us a copy of that home inspection report, that'll
I
help
will
us.
ask Bob for a copy of the home inspection report. I want you guys to have that.
Yep.
I mean, it is possible that this
Perfect.
doesn't have it.
Exactly.
But
it could be nothing.
When we see this is an indicator.
Especially from a house of this age,
I
from the
was here
50s.
when the home inspector came. He seemed very competent.
Sure.
Hi, this is Chris West from House Calls Vermont, and as usual, we're going to have a quick chat with Steve Spats from Efficieny Vermont. This week, we'll be chatting about the Home Performance with Energy Star program, also known as energy audits. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
Good, Chris. How are you? Good to hear from you.
Good to hear from you too, and I'm doing pretty well, thank you. It's end of graduation time, and I finally have my second one graduated. So
that's big.
It's a big one.
Wow, excellent. Congrats.
Yeah, exciting. He's going on a gap year, so I get a year to collect the money I need to put him through college.
Put him to work.
Yeah, exactly. So let's chat a little about the Home Performance with Energy Star program. Why don't you just explain, what that is in broad terms, and then get down to how people can find contractors and what incentives are available?
Sure. So Home Performance with Energy Star program is a program that addresses overall building comfort, durability, health and safety, and energy efficiency under the brand of Energy Star. And so this is a program that is owned or managed by the Department of Energy with the Energy Star brand. And in Vermont, Efficieny Vermont runs the Home Performance with Energy Star program on behalf of the Department of Energy. So we're an administrator of that program here in Vermont. And what makes the Home Performance with Energy Star program unique is that it is a contractor base that is specifically trained in building science and how to appropriately analyze and evaluate buildings.
Hi, this is Chris West from House Calls Vermont, and as usual, we're going to have a quick chat with Steve Spats from Efficieny Vermont. This week, we'll be chatting about Hi, this is Chris West from House Calls Vermont, and combustion, just to be clear, combustion safety is your boiler, your water heater, anything that is going to be burning a fuel in your house and maybe taking air from the house to make that happen, or at the very least pushing bad stuff out.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much almost all of us live in a building that has some type of fuel burning appliance in it, and it's crucial to make sure that appliance, that equipment is burning the fuel appropriately and making sure that the byproducts of that fuel combustion are getting out of the house effectively and safely. And both from just how your house and how that building is as it stands right now, and then also in light of making improvements on that building as well, things that you can do to really lower your energy bills, increase comfort, improve building durability by improving air leakage rates through the building and insulation levels. Changing those dynamics can change the dynamic of how some of your combustion equipment.
So you could have a house that before you have work done is not causing, say, a water heater to backdraft, and because the work you do makes the house tighter, there's a chance that after that work is done that those appliances are not performing the way they were and may actually be causing issues.
Yeah, and those appliances were probably working on the margins previously, but you just had conditions occurring in your house that kind of masked the potential issues that were there. So,
right.
These contractors, because of the training that they receive and the level of ongoing continuing education and training and oversight that they receive as well, those are the kinds of things that make them stand out to some extent amongst other contractors who could similarly do insulation or air sealing work in a building, but not be aware of those concerns or issues around combustion safety and other indoor pollutants and contaminants like this contractor base specifically is.
Right. So yeah. So if someone is going to look for someone who has those qualifications, where's the best way for them to find those people?
So because of the fact that the contractors that participate in this program with us under the Energy Star brand are specifically trained and certified. They're certified by an agency that requires that they maintain that certification every 3 years. They have to recertify essentially. And so there's a high level of oversight and accountability with this contractor base. And by way of their association with us, they are the access point for consumers in Vermont to access incentives and rebates from Efficieny Vermont to help bring down some of those costs for air sealing and insulation. So if it's work that you've been thinking about, you want to just get a general idea about what's going on in your home and bring one of these professionals in to kind of just take a look and give their expert opinion on the conditions you have in your building and potential opportunities for improvement. You can seek them out through Efficieny Vermont's website by going to efficiencyvermont.com, and we have a Find a Contractor link or portal on the website. And in there, you can search for the contractor type that you're looking for. You can search under home performance contractors. You can search under insulation and air sealing for residential homes and put in your zip code, and that will give you the results of contractors that are in your area and in your radius, essentially, to where you live.
Now, if I understand it correctly, there's also a caveat in there, which is that if you are a customer of Vermont Gas or Burlington Electric, that because of the way the ratepayer funds are distributed, that if you are getting services from either BED or Vermont Gas, they have a parallel program. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. Burlington Electric has their own weatherization program, so they can be contacted directly if you're a customer of Burlington Electric. And they offer incentives and rebates as well, but they do not go through Efficieny Vermont. It's not a Efficieny Vermont affiliated program. Vermont Gas Systems has programs as well for high-use customers, and then customers that are not considered quote-unquote high-use. They use the same contractor network that Efficieny Vermont does, so you can still work with Efficieny Vermont's contractor network and go through the Vermont Gas program as well. So if you are a customer of either of those two utilities, then you can reach out to the utility directly as well and get more information, because there could be some other unique options available through those two utilities as well.
And one more point is, if you are someone who it uses LIHEAP or one of the other assistance programs, you can actually make an application to one of the weather resistance programs throughout the state and get all of that done by your regional WAP and not go. This is really for what we call market rate housing.
Correct.
Yep. So if I were to be a person and I apply to have someone come and do an audit, and someone comes and does an audit, what are the incentives that are available, and how are those divvied up?
Sure. So homeowners have access to incentives from Efficiency Vermont that'll cover half of the project cost, half of the eligible insulation and air sealing measure costs that would be installed in their home. And we'll cover that cost up to a cap of either $3,000 or $1,000, depending on household income. So the cap to $3,000 is available for moderate income households. And you'll see on our website, when you look up the information about the incentives, there is a table there that'll show what household income limits are per county in Vermont, and what those income thresholds are to achieve the $3,000 or $1,000 cap in incentives.
Great. That's a lot in a little bit of time and a little bit of space there, but I think we covered it all. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the Home Performance with Energy Star program?
This has been a program that Efficiency Vermont has run for a long time now, pushing a couple decades here, and the work continues to grow. The state of Vermont is reinvesting in weatherization as a path towards meeting our climate goals, and also just reducing the overall energy burden to Vermonters. So the program continues forward. It's a great contractor base and network that works in the program. And contractors are steadily busy right now, so we encourage that you seek out a few different contractors if you're interested in looking at your options. And as long as you're okay with waiting for a little bit, you can plan ahead a little bit, then you'll be able to find a contractor to work with. So.
Yeah, we get most of our calls after the first cold day, right?
That's right.
November 15th.
Now is not the time people are typically thinking about this stuff.
No,
but.
very, very true. Great. And just as always, where can they go to get that information, Steve?
You can go to efficiencyvermont.com. You can find everything you need there.
Great. Well, Steve, thanks again for stopping by and giving us some information about Efficiency Vermont and their programs. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Chris.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was the bit with Steve Spats.
Steve's great.
Steve is awesome. We're so lucky to have him working with us on House Calls Vermont, but also we as a state are very thankful for having him and others like him working through Efficiency Vermont to make sure that these programs are well administered and that we have good building science behind the work we're doing. So we got one more interview tonight. We're going to be talking an interview Jim and I did a couple weeks ago with Mark Coviello from SIGA, which is a membranes and tape company originally out of Switzerland. And we'll just step right to it.
Yeah, great.
This is the micro version. Damn it.
What do you mean?
No, it's showing it as a very small version of it. Let me see. I know what I got to do. I'll switch it out. There we go. Hey everybody, this is Chris West from House Calls Vermont, and today we're going to be speaking with Mark Coviello, who is the SIGA Trainer and Application Advisor here in our area, and we're going to ask him about membranes, about tapes, and about the importance of vapor open assemblies. And so, Mark, welcome to the program, and of course, Jim Bradley, my colleague, is here with us to grill Mark. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Chris and Jim. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, Mark.
Our pleasure. Now, Mark is, as we said, he represents SIGA. SIGA is a company that we're big fans of. We've been using and supporting their products for years. There are a number of companies out there, all European-based. SIGA is a Swiss company originally, and they're all putting out SIGA and Proclima, and a couple of other companies are putting out membranes and tapes and other types of things. But you're one of the people we work with on a regular basis. Like, we see Mark on site if we're doing a job and we call up and say, we need tape. The next day he shows up and there's tape.
The same day, often.
And I was actually at a building site here in Jericho 2 weeks ago, and there were the Leaches doing a retrofit of a really old plank building from the early 1800s, and they're putting on this peel and stick. And I was like, wait a second, I know that. And he said, yeah, Mark was down here. He dropped the stuff off and gave us a training on how to use it. It was a challenging building. They were not adding any insulation. But you're there, and I think it's important that people in our area and across the country know about SIGA, but also know you and your products and what you offer. So I'm going to just open up with one of those open questions to say, so Mark, tell us, what is SIGA, and how can it help with our building durable and airtight buildings?
Sure. Great question. First off, you started off by saying there's a number of companies out there that produce tapes and membranes and adhesive that are associated with high-performance buildings or airtight buildings. Thanks for saying that. We are not the only company out there. There are a number of companies out there. So if you're using us or one of those others, you're doing a great job to start with. So I just needed to get that square. So thanks. SIGA is a Swiss company. We're going on 55 years old. We're a family-owned company. We operate worldwide. I'm a trainer and application advisor, like you said, in the Northeast market. I have a teammate who's based out of New Hampshire. He typically does the southern area of New England, and I do the northern area of New England. And what we do is we meet with builders and architects, high-performance design build folks, and we try to promote good building practice. We try to let our customers and influencers and builders know that when, why, and how to use specific airtight, weathertight, and vapor control products. Yeah, that's kind of what we are and what we do.
So yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so many people are used to seeing the other products on site that begin with T. One of those being tar paper. The other is going to be rhymes with Beck, and another one with par. But anyway, it begins with T. But they're used to those type of things. And when some of those products have failed, now builders are saying, let's revert back to tar paper because, hey, I've taken a lot of old buildings apart, and hey, that everything was fine. They're missing the mark, though, in our estimation, and it's because though the tar paper is the same, the building materials that they're trying to protect have changed significantly, and vapor drive has become such a much bigger part of the equation. So in the details, what you do, Mark, what you've done for us is you educate us on why we should use a certain product and how it performs. Not that it just has that builder's name on it or that lumberyard's name on it. It's what does it do and how do you install it appropriately? Can you share a little bit about with us why that is so important to get that right?
Well, sure. I'm going to reference that tar paper. That's an easy one that I can say and talk about. I have a customer who's a panelized builder. They build panels, half a SIP panel, so it won't be, say, OSB, foam OSB. Let's call it OSB and then foam to the inside. They'll do the complete panel, however. Well, they're strong advocates on tar paper to the exterior. It's a great weather barrier. It lasts for a long, long time. When shingled properly, it will definitely shed bulk water. It's not an air barrier, but they lick that air barrier issue on the inside by taping all of their interior seams. So all of these components have to work together and jive together. And like you said, the products have changed over the years. I mean, I guess I can use brand names. Look at Zip sheathing, Huber Zip. I see it everywhere. Great product. It makes building fast and efficient. It's a great product also depending on who installs it. I think there's with good products come user error at times. So wanting to make sure that people are trained on how to put these new products on that are in the industry. And I say that, well, I guess Jim, you said it. A lot of people don't know that SIGA even exists because let's call it a new product. We're 55 years old. It's new to North America, So, and here's my challenge of now trying to educate people, architects, builders, designers, how and when to use it appropriately and efficiently. It doesn't come with an inexpensive price tag. So I want to make sure that they're spending their money and they're applying it perfectly so that they get, well, is it the perfect storm they're going to end up with? No, they're going to end up with, securing that outside of their building. So, yeah.
Well, the one thing I remember you helped me with was a roof assembly we were doing for a colleague of ours over in Burlington. And that was where it was a vaulted ceiling and it had regular, really a good roofing underlayment in one respect. You would think it would be. But what was happening was it was causing it to rain inside the house. And we couldn't figure out why initially, but then we realized that the warm, moist air was getting up into that vaulted space and then condensing on the back side of the sheathing because that underlayment was vapor closed and it would not allow for drying. Right. And so you brought out the product, MyVest, or Mayvest, I should say, Mayvest. And we use that, which is a perm rating.
I personally pronounce it MadgeVest, but
MadgeVest. What is the actual perm rating of that again?
MyVest exterior membrane is 54.
So 54, I was going to say 52. So 54 as compared to 0. And so it has the ability to protect from bulk water moisture getting in, but also it allows for drying from the inside so you don't have it raining on the inside of your assembly. And how many vaulted ceilings these opportunities have been missed? They're trying to think of, we got to keep the water out, which is great. You have to keep the water out. But when the water's the moisture is trying to drive outward, if it has nowhere to go, it's going to condense and it's going to start ruining the assembly. Having that understanding, though, I would say 90% of the people, at least, that are doing these projects don't get that yet, and they need to.
Right. And I'd like to point out that that particular project was the topic of a Journal of Light Construction article. So if people are interested, we'll have a link to the bottom of that particular project where we found it raining inside. And it's certainly not the only time that we've been on a job doing an audit. I remember very clearly a tongue and groove roof that we were at, and the guy was like, I'm getting this horrible staining on the inside of my tongue and groove. What is that? And we were like, this is air leakage. You have air leakage, the air is getting through, it's hitting the bottom of the sheathing, and it's dripping back into your house. It's not a leaky roof. That's what he was worried about. And the roof looked like horrible. The roof really needed to be replacing, which gave us a great opportunity for doing some added insulation on the outside and some good exterior air sealing. But we see that type of thing all the time.
There's some cool things that you can do, it really is. And you just have to think about it. The two of you with your experience and your education, you can come up with a multiple of different options, so I think that's what makes it even cooler,
Yeah, and what's important, of course, when we're looking at a product, I mean, I know that Jim started with the T word, but when we're building these buildings, we now have an air tightness requirement of 3 air changes per hour, and you can reach that pretty much without membranes and things. But once you start getting down to the ones, once you start getting really tight, then the old-fashioned, I'm going to use sheetrock air sealing, it's just not an option anymore in order to be certain that you're going to hit those numbers. And by the way, we're trying to, as we make our houses more and more tight, we're trapping more and more moisture in there. The wind is not blowing through our walls, which is a good thing as far as infiltration reduction. But one of the reasons, as I always say, that we have 150 and 250-year-old houses still standing is because they're not airtight. right? Because all the moisture was transported away from the assemblies as they were beginning to rot. No, get that water out of there. And now we need to rely on diffusion to get that stuff out of there. So we're talking about vapor open, what we call open in both directions, as we like to say, assemblies that can dry in both directions. So tell us a little about the membrane options we have with a company like SIGA and what the perm ratings are of those. I mean, there's straight up perm ratings, but there's also variable perm ratings. Why don't you walk us through that just a bit?
And why to use them? And why to use them as compared to regular plastic or some kind of just an exterior membrane? Why is it important to even consider these?
Right. Okay, sure. Not a problem. I'll start from the outside and work my way in, I suppose.
Sure.
3 different exterior membranes. And it's funny, the pronunciation of the word my vest, my Rex. I hear it all different ways, so you can say it however you want. It's quite funny. We struggle with the names here in North America. I can certainly say that. So the first one being My Vest 700 SOB. It's a black exterior weather-resistant barrier. It comes with a strip of wig glove on the bottom course of each roll, so that when the membrane is applied, it's self-sealing essentially.
So it's one course of tape in addition to the membrane.
Exactly, right. So it's not fully self-adhered. It's just one course of 2-inch wig glove adhered to the backside of the membrane. So again, when you form your overlap, and this is strictly a weather barrier because I'm going to tell you it has a perm rating of 70, I believe. It's right around 70, so it's a high perm rating, but it's black and it's 100% UV stable forever. So it's used for open joint facades, open joint cladding. And again, therefore, that wig glove on that backside to seal when the membrane is properly overlapped. So when you are looking through the open joint cladding, you don't see any tapes or anything. It's a quite clean installation. We then moved to MyVest 500 SA, one of our newer or newest membranes. Been around for a couple of years now. It's fully self-adhered.
So just to be clear, that means peel and stick for the regular listener, right? Right.
Right. So you either have an 18-inch detail roll or a 60-inch 5-foot roll of peel and stick membrane. It has a perm rating of 15. It's fully. The funny thing is, do I use the word waterproof? What is really waterproof? It's
bulk water, right?
Right. Oh, it's bulk waterproof. It's
right.
Wind-driven rainproof for sure. Once it's applied to the substrate, it can also double as an air barrier because essentially it is sealing any vertical or horizontal seams. So basically, that MyVest 500 SA coupled with some wig glove, you can have an airtight, weather-tight assembly from the outside.
So just to be clear, wig glove, you're saying that a lot, and I know what that means, and Jim knows that. But wig glove is one of your tape products.
It is.
Yeah.
Wig glove is an exterior seam sealing tape that combined with some of our exterior membranes, it creates, like I mentioned earlier, that airtight assembly, or it helps to seal the rough openings of your windows or doors, things of that nature. So after we talked about the MyVest 500 SA, we moved to the MyVest 200. And that's one of our older membranes that's been around forever and ever. And that's our mechanical fastened exterior membrane. In conjunction with wig glove tape, when the seams are sealed and continuous, it's also considered an air barrier. It has a perm rate of, you're challenging me, guys, I want to say 64.
Yeah, it's up there.
62, 54, 55. It has a perm rating of 55. So a little bit less than the MyVest 700, but vapor open. So it will not allow bulk water to penetrate from the outside, but allowing any vapor or moisture that builds up behind the membrane inside of the cavity to penetrate and dry to the exterior.
And to be clear, for once again the people listening in that may not have heard of the perm rating before, perm rating is basically the higher the perm rating, the more easily vapor is transferred or allows it to dry. The lower the perm rating, once you get down to close to 0 or less, you're going to have a vapor barrier at that point in time and not just a vapor control layer. So that's why perm ratings are so important. The higher perm rating, the better it is for the assembly as far as letting it dry out.
Exactly, yes. So that takes us down into the interior. Interior, we have an interior membrane. It's called Myrex. Our interior membrane is a variable membrane, so it has the ability to change its perm rating. It comes in a 5-foot tall roll. It varies at let me start over. Its membrane is variable in one direction, I should say.
Right.
In one direction from the inside. So from the inside, if I was inside my building looking at this membrane installed, that membrane is going to stay virtually vapor closed at, what is it, 0.097, I believe, perm, US perm. If I'm on the outside, that membrane has the ability to open up to 4.25 US perms. So again, if any vapor were to get inside of my assembly, depending on the moisture, the humidity, it has the ability to say, okay, I need to open up and I need to allow this moisture to dry to the interior. It doesn't happen very often in our weather zone, in our climate zone. It's primarily closed. It's promoting drying to the exterior by staying closed. However, again, it will open up to approximately 4.25 US perms when needed.
And just to jump in to clarify, so where is something a vapor barrier? Where is it a vapor retarder? And when is a vapor open? And what is a perm? And we've gone over this on a number of our radio shows, which are also YouTube videos that you can check out. And what basically anything from 0.001 to 0.1 is a vapor barrier. Anything from 0.1 to 1 is a vapor retarder, and anything that's more than 1 perm is more vapor open. When you get to 10 perms, it's considered to be completely vapor open. So that's the scale, and that's a class 1, 2, and 3 vapor retarder, and we'll make sure a little chart jumps up on the screen here so you can see that. So what we're looking for when we're making vapor open assemblies is that we want something above 10 on the outside. And we want something, if we're going to do inside vapor control also, we like that vapor, the variable vapor open, vapor close, because what it allows for is reducing the vapor coming from the inside of the house into your assembly during the heating season when there's more vapor in the house than outside of the house. Remember, we're talking about nature likes a balance. And just like heat, if it's cold outside and it's warm inside, heat goes from where it's warmer to where it's colder. And the same thing happens with vapor. If you're more moist inside and it's less moist outside, then water vapor, gaseous water, will actually flow through your paint, through your sheetrock, and into your wall. And it will deposit there if it hits a surface that's below the 2 point. That's that first condensing layer.
Are we calling that diffusion, Chris?
Yes, we call that diffusion, exactly. Yeah. Vapor diffusion.
And I'm glad that you actually mentioned those scales and the classes. For instance, I don't think a lot of people understand, that class 1 4 plastic, right? That's a great way, I think, to define the two, or 3, I guess, if you weren't clear on what the differences were. Vapor close, class 1 4 poly.
Right, exactly. So now we've got our membranes dealt out. Why don't you bring us around to understanding the tape side of things? Because I know that you have tapes for all kinds of different places. I contacted you last summer when I was putting that cap on top of the brick part of the building at 10 old, and I needed a capillary break between the brick and my mud sill. So and you brought over a product. It dropped. I mean, it was awesome, and I still have a bunch of it left. So why don't we start from the concrete wall to the frame wall as far as capillary breaks, and then let's talk about what acrylic bonding agent tape is.
Okay, awesome. We do have a series of different tapes. We do try to keep it simple. So as confusing as it may sound, it's not at all. It's actually quite simple. So let's start inside. So if I have Myrex, or our interior vapor control layer, I would couple that with Reson. Reson is our interior seam sealing tape. Interior seam sealing tape for sealing all the horizontal or vertical seams of either that material, Myrex, or we can seal plywood. We can seal just about any substrate to the interior. And I say that to the interior because Reson is what we would call a vapor close. We would call that a vapor close tape. It has a very small or slight permeability to allow our acrylic adhesive to dry if any moisture were to get behind that surface. So the carrier material, being our tape, the Reson is colored green. So that carrier material is green. That has that permeability rating to, again, allow the vapor moisture to dry out. Our tape, that 100% acrylic adhesive, is also non-toxic and VOC, residential free of, what am I trying to say?
Low VOC or non-VOC.
Non-VOC, exactly.
Volatile organic compound, right?
Exactly. So it's safe as well. There's no off-gassing of the material. Chris, you also mentioned, try to talk about that concrete to the mud sill to the substrate. We have a tape that's called Fentrum. Our Fentrum tape is used both on the inside and the outside. And it comes with, again, a permeability rating to allow any vapor to permeate through the tape to allow drying if any moisture were to get behind the tape. And again, I say moisture, it's not bulk water. It can be applied to concrete surfaces without any primers down to 14 degrees Fahrenheit as a application temperature range. So anytime we talk about any of our tapes or membranes with adhesives on them, they have a very low application temperature range, conservatively starting at 14 degrees. They can be applied to many different surfaces without the use of primers, OSBs, plywood, concrete, gypboard, you name it. One of the only substrates or products that we don't really like to adhere to very well would be any type of like wood fiberboard.
Like Gutex or something like
a
that.
Gutex. Yeah. And it's not the problem that we don't adhere to that material. The problem is the material doesn't have enough really like backbone to support us.
Yeah.
We'll pull our material, we'll pull the tape off of the material, and the material will come with the tape.
Yeah. It's just that Gutex is friable in that way, so it's very easy to pull off the top couple of layers. I wanted to just jump in there on that 14-degree temperature application, because my first experience with Reson was with Jim's boss. Nate Hayward was building a house. They were trying to adhere membrane to the inside of a concrete wall in the winter, and the other products were just not sticking. And you dropped off some Reson, and they were like, "This stuff is awesome because I can apply it at this temperature." And it was definitely something we can say field tested on it working down to 14 degrees. So
right. No, thanks for saying that. Some guys love it. A lot of guys hate it because they know that they're working all winter long. But here in Vermont, it can get darn cold for sure. I think I mentioned it's a 0.09 US perm. So again, it has a very, very slight permeability to allow some moisture to pass through if need be. That's the Reson. Talked about the Fentrum for the base joint. And again, the base joint where the wall meets the concrete foundation, I see in the field one of the most common areas that is missed as far as air sealing. Sure, there's that still seal, and a lot of people use, whatever it might be, PL 5000 or whatever, caulking or sealant.
Acoustic caulking. I hear a lot of people
Whatever it
using.
might,
Yeah.
but that tape joint at that intersection is, you can inspect it, you can see it, you know that it's been done. So it's a great joint to actually seal and cover. That brings us to Wig Glove. I mentioned Wig Glove earlier. Wig Glove is our exterior seam sealing tape. It's also used for penetrations to the outside. It can be used on all different substrates, such as, like I mentioned, Reson, plywood, OSB, zip sheathing, any type of exterior membrane, typically, if you want to overlap and seal that membrane. Sure, we love it being used with MyVest or MyVest 500. But if you're looking to build an assembly and you're using a competitor's membrane or sheathing, and you want a good robust tape or a tape that's going to stick in the wintertime, we don't mind combining products.
You're agnostic as long as they're thinking about air tightness and they're using products that are going to do the job right. I mean, you definitely want to sell. You guys are in business, but
Right. But as long as you're doing a good job and you're thinking about it, we're okay with that. You don't have to use our whole system. Again, like you said, we would love for you to use it, but again, you certainly don't have to, and we fully support that. A lot of times it comes up with an issue as far as warranty. Well, the competitor might not warranty um, give you their warranty on their product, but we'll certainly warranty our product on theirs.
yeah.
No problem. So we're willing to
And
stand
Mark,
up.
I can say that, I've experienced that with you so many different times where, we've used a competitor's product because we either had it around or the customer preferred it, but we
Sure.
know that the tape works. And, we'll do a hybrid situation, but we want an assembly that's going to be proper for the actual building and the climate. And you've supported that. And that has been, very refreshing to be able to deal with a company that is willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's perfect. It's what I think needs to happen in the industry, really. Um, Yeah. So, we moved, I talked about Fentrum at the base joint. We also make a Fentrum for window sealing. It's kind of a cool tape. It carries a name. It's a Fentrum 230 gray. It has a number to it, and it comes in some different widths. The way it comes off the roll, it has a 1/2 inch pre-fold that's actually pre-peeled. It's a great section or a great detail to stick right on the frame of the window, come across a nailing flange and hit some substrate. It's awesome for that application.
Yeah.
It's even better for the European window that doesn't have a nailing flange.
Right.
And you now create the nailing flange with this tape. And by having that 1/2 inch pre-peeled pre-fold, it creates a perfect straight line right down the side or the edge of the frame of the window. So it's a great tape for window sealing. Bulk water, or bulk waterproof, I guess, from the outside, vapor permeable from the inside. Now that tape actually does carry a higher perm rating than our interior tapes. If there was any vapor or moisture or water that got inside of the rough opening cavity, we want to promote drying to the outside or exterior drying. That has, that has a perm rating of 1.72, 1.73, somewhere around there.
That's great. As a matter of fact, just a little plug is in about 2 weeks I will be getting my next order of Wythe windows in, and we will be needing to do an interior and exterior taping on that. I already have. You dropped off some Reson the other day, but I'll probably need to get some Wig Glove for that. And we're going to be doing a whole bit on mid-wall window installation, which will be a part of the show the week that we do that install. So I'll be getting in touch for some Wig Glove for that.
No problem, Chris. Actually, I like the window detail and the challenge of the European, the North American window. Different window manufacturers have different specs or installation guidelines. And again, I love the challenge of just trying to seal that window and come up with the best techniques. There's so many different ways. Yeah, let's set up a video camera and let's do one window together at your house. I'd love to do it.
Yeah, and that will also let us see Mark's, training and application skills in the field.
Put me on the spot for sure. No, I'm up for the challenge.
Great. Well, yeah.
A few things I think that are really important here that we need to understand, because some of these membranes still, they've been on the market for some time, but they're still new because people did make a switch maybe 20 years ago to one of the other T names. And because of that, they may not be willing, thinking this is just the Cadillac option, or the high-end option. Well, you're looking for high performance. But what concerns me about any of these assemblies is getting the details right, because putting plastic behind your sheetrock was promoted for so many years, but it was never installed right. And even today's code, you can use a better product than plastic, but if you don't take the joints and seams and you staple through it and tear it, and you don't detail around all these different elements, you're not going to get the performance that you're looking for. It may be on the wall, but it's not going to be promoting what you're looking to promote with your products. And I see that far too often, even on the outside, where I'll see somebody put a building wrap on with whatever's name on there, and then they don't tape the seams, or they use a slap stapler, voiding the warranty. So many different things. They don't get the detail right, or in the assembly, they don't overlap the top layer to the lower layer. They underlap, right. And then they wonder why water chases in.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to get the details right. And one thing that the way SIGA has set up your service here in our region has been that you get to go, you have the latitude of going to the job sites, meeting with the contractors, educating them why. And that is such a big benefit because it makes them want to use it the next time. Because if they understand how to install it, where I think the failure is going to be is if someone tried something new and then they do see a failure, let's go back to car paper.
Because it was the product that made the mistake, right?
Yeah, not the installation, but so many times it is the installation. So getting that installation right, taking advantage of your services, Mark, and your knowledge to be able to say this is how you do this in the right way, I think is crucial for the whole development of this product line in our market.
Well, thanks, Jim. I want to reference a job that you did with Nate up in the islands, that beautiful home up on the cliff there that had that gorgeous view. You guys had some logic windows that you installed, and you did the complete system. You actually detailed that rough opening to the hilt. I mean, you had insulation on the rough opening. You thought of everything on that application, and you used our system both inside and outside tape. So you used the Fentrum IS-20 on the inside, and you used the Fentrum 230 gray on the outside. But imagine that. Imagine if I convinced you into using Fentrum. You purchased the Fentrum went to the job site, and then someone installed the windows, and then you put the interior tape on the outside. So you put a tape now that has a 0.09 perm on the outside, and now a tape that has a 1.72 on the inside. We're talking like very, very small perm ratings, but still, one's really closed and one's kind of open. So that kind of really defeated the purpose, definitely in our climate zone. They're all waterproof to the outside. None of our tapes allow water to penetrate them. So as far as bulk water, you're fine. But if any moisture or vapor were inside of that rough opening cavity, where's it going? That's 1, 2, 3 days a year. It's going to try and dry to the inside.
Yeah.
So you have an issue, and we don't want that. We want to prevent that issue. And you said it earlier. Prevent bad things from happening.
Yeah.
First thing I wrote down, and I'm going to use it, and there you are. We want to prevent bad things from happening. So thanks for using our system up there, and you guys, you detailed it perfect. It came out really nice.
Well, it doesn't feel like we've been chatting for almost 45 minutes, but we're getting close. And first of all, Mark, I want to make it very clear to the people out there who are watching this, you do not charge for site training or site visits, right?
No, it's part of my job.
Yeah.
You know, that's my job. My job is to promote SIGA. Sure, I sell SIGA products, but in hindsight, we just want people to know how to use it, when to use it, and where to use it. We provide moisture calculations if you're going to use our products, and that on-site training. Yeah, I'll come out. I'll do mock-ups. I'll work side by side with you guys for a little bit and install some windows and make sure that they're done right. You know, I don't want to call back, Chris. You know, I don't want you to say, Mark, my window's leaking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, why is this window leaking? I don't want that. You know,
Leaking
so,
at the tape. I mean, we know you can have windows leaking because they were manufactured poorly, but the window to wall connection should not be leaking. Yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming in and interviewing with us today. We are really glad, and we'll have you back on when we get to installing my mid-wall windows. I have a brick install, and I got a wood frame install, so we'll have a lot of fun with that. And we'll get videos out so that everybody can see you working in the field and get an idea of what Jim and I will go through as far as the process of determining exactly how we want to detail that window. And I'm really looking forward to having you back for that.
thanks. I didn't mean to invite myself, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't help myself. I like that. And I'd rather be out in the field with you guys than sitting at my desk here.
Agreed. Okay, well, this is once again Chris West for House Calls Vermont, and until next week when we have another interview, we'll let you know about that. We have in the wings waiting, talking about embodied energy. We have Jacob Daver Racusin from Nature, from New Framework. Sorry, I don't want to get his company wrong. And once again, Mark, thanks so much. We'll be seeing you again, and everybody have a good day.
Thanks.
Well, there we are again. That's the end of that, Jim.
Mark's definitely a great partner to have in this whole endeavor, more than a salesperson for sure.
Yep, and if you ever are working on a project and have any questions about air sealing, he's not there to sell a product to you. It's not
Exactly.
his job. His job is there as applications trainer. So if you have a question about how to properly, weatherize or waterproof or install a window, Mark's your guy.
Yes.
A couple of weeks from now, once the windows come in from Wythe Windows for 10 Old Stage, we're going to have a day worth of window install, and we're going to have Mark out there, and Jim will be out there. I think we're going to get Andy Leach out there as well, and we'll install a couple of my super insulated high R value windows.
Yep.
And we'll show you exactly what you have to keep in mind in a mid-wall, right? So a lot of windows are installed on the outside, and those have flanges. Almost no windows are built all the way on the inside, but these windows are mid-wall install. So that has a lot of very important. It's a great way to install a window. It improves the performance of the window overall, but it also carries with it some things you have to be really aware of to make sure that you're building a durable installation. And
Exactly.
not for nothing, Jim, but the window up in my dining room, that 3-pane window, that's also getting replaced. And that's a retrofit, not only because the one at 10 Old Stage is really just a blank window buck, and we're going to be sliding the window in there. But here at home, we have windows that you installed exterior trim to, almost 10 years ago now.
I know it's going to be an interesting dive in that one because we will get to see how well the assembly has held up, because we used the high performance underlayment. We used the tapes from 475, the Tuscan and the Minto wrap, and we can see how this held up. But the challenging thing is, since it was installed really, really well, is taking that back apart and be able to get the assembly put back together. So it's a really intense assembly, but yeah, it'll be a definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, I'll be interested in seeing how we're going to make the new windows fit in the old hole. I mean,
Sure.
I took the rev openings, I ordered the window to be the right size, but where does the trim meet the frame based on now? On the new frame, the new window, it may be too high for the weep hole. So, It's gonna be an interesting thing. So we're not there yet, but when we get there, we'll make sure we get plenty of video for you guys and get it out there. So we're off next week on vacation. We will be posting something for all of you, so you can keep on consuming our content. If you like our show, please subscribe and hit the little bell so you get a notification when more content comes out. If you
Great.
like the show, tell your friends and family about it. We're growing our footprint. Jim and I were actually on VPR's Vermont edition last Friday, if you didn't
Yes.
hear it. And we've got audio of that, which we'll throw up at some point. It's almost an hour long, where we did our standard answering phone calls and talking about issues with material prices and availability of labor and also just some building science questions that some callers called in with. So that was a lot of fun. We're hoping to do that again soon. So,
Sure.
Until next week, until 2 weeks from now, this is Chris West.
And Jim Bradley. Have a great night.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.